God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. All right, Tony, welcome, brother. Thanks for coming out. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Good to be here.
Yeah. So I just want to, kind of start from the beginning and kind of get your story. I know of you through some mutual people, and I see you going around sharing at different AAs. I know that you're very involved in recovery, and I just kind of wanted to get your story, and I'm glad that you came out here today.
Yeah.
So, are you from this area?
Yeah. I grew up in South Sac.
Okay.
I was born in Redwood City, but my parents couldn't afford to live there. I was
Yeah.
born in 1980, and so they couldn't afford to live there. Went to South Sac, and within a matter of years, my parents' house kept getting robbed over and over and over.
What part of South Sac?
Kind of right by I don't know, Rudder Pool Center, like Kennedy Elementary, kind of by, I think it was Stockton and Power Inn, just a not fun part of town, and we found out that our neighbors were doing it. Like we would go out on little trips, and my parents' tools would be, rummaged through, and a bunch of the good stuff would be pulled out.
Yeah.
And the game changer for that was one day I remember being a kid, and it was like 2 a.m, and I hear my dad yelling, and I turn around as I'm waking up, and he's got a gun in his hand. And my dad's not the type of guy that's gonna just break out a gun for no reason. And I guess what happened was it was a high-speed chase ended in our court, and the people bailed out and were hopping our fence. Yeah, and so like
Jeez.
I remember. I mean, luckily there was no injuries or nothing like that. They were arrested. But
Crazy.
my parents was like, we're putting up the house for sale. We're out of here.
Yeah.
And so I got to Citrus Heights, and I've been there ever since until I got to about 18 years old and left.
And how old were you when you moved?
I think that was probably like 3rd grade.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So you had
Sac.
both parents in the house.
Yeah. I've been very privileged. My parents, stayed together the entire time through thick
Good.
and thin.
Yeah.
There's little issues here and there, but they always seem to kind of work them out.
And what did your parents do growing up for work?
So my dad actually met my mom in Okinawa, Japan. My mom is full Japanese. I come from a strange family. My mom is 4'11".
Yeah.
Been in the United States for years, but still has this just heavy accent. And my dad's just German, Irish, 6'4", 270. So they're just so vastly different in size. And he met her while he was in the Air Force in Okinawa, Japan.
Oh, nice.
In the late 1970s, and that's
very cool.
Yeah,
So he brought her back with him.
yeah, came back, and
Nice.
yeah, they wanted to be in the United States.
Yeah.
And so it just
And
worked.
so how was that growing up? Like, your mother obviously has different values and like cultural identities than your father, right? Like, how was that?
It was interesting. I remember being a young kid and going to these like Japanese churches in South Sac and not understanding what's going on, and it just seemed a little off. And then like as I grew up a little bit, got a little older, we started going to like Christian churches, and that was completely different. So there was a shift there. I don't know what really happened, but nevertheless, my parents kind of raised me in a Christian home for the most part.
Did your mom convert to Christianity?
Yeah, it seemed like maybe her and my dad just kind of wanted to go that direction, and then they enjoyed, the service and what that was doing in their life. So.
Nice. So you guys grew up going to church?
Not steadily. There was periods of time where it was every Sunday, and then there was periods of time where it was just happening like once every 3 or 4 months, and definitely on holidays.
Yeah.
I have one sister that's 2 years younger, and we always got to go to Bible studies and things like that, and just,
Yeah.
yeah.
How would you describe your childhood?
My childhood was, I don't know, my parents, they're really, really good people. My dad was very strict because of the military.
Right.
So there was a lot of rules, and there was a lot of structure.
Right.
And I'm very grateful for that now.
Right.
But as I was growing up,
Right.
I was extremely defiant, and I
Yeah.
did not like it. I didn't want to be home every day at 5:30 to eat dinner, and I didn't want to go clean my room. And there was a lot of defiance, and just I just rebelled at a young age.
It seems like a pretty common thing, people that grow up with that rigid household, whether it's, religion or military or what it is. It makes you just want to push back for some reason.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, it's like, kids that grow up without it, they don't got it going on either. It's so I think it's kind of a balance you got to have with it. It's hard, man. As a parent, like trying to walk that line between like discipline and having structure, and also not trying to force things down their throat and force them to do stuff all the time. But
yeah, for me, like I just remember being like, not forced, but pretty much you got to read 20 minutes a day, and I would just hate reading because of that,
because it's forced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it was tough, for me. But all in all, I can't say, I mean, my dad was a single, income provider. My mom stayed home with us, made us lunch, took us to school. I felt loved. I mean, there's a lot of good things that happened in our life. I feel all around them.
What'd your dad do for work?
Once he left the military, he actually worked at Army Depot in South Sac, then McClellan Air Force Base, and then he just kind of veered off and said, "You know what? I'm going to go apply for the state." And he wrote codes and programs for actual DMV.
Oh, interesting.
So he ended up going to the state for
It's a secure
yeah
job,
That's exactly what it was. It was just that secure, stable, just it provided, and it just it fit him well.
Yeah.
Let's just say.
Yeah. So you guys moved to Citrus Heights like third grade-ish, and how did that treat you?
I went to school out there, and just I started making friends right off the bat, and I really enjoyed it. I had a couple neighborhood friends that I hung out with. I got into bikes and skateboards and just a lot of outdoor stuff, you know, and it was a really good time overall. So yeah, it was good.
And how old are you?
Right now, just turned 43 in December.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're like 90s kid? Yeah. Nice. So there wasn't all the gadgets and the internet and all that back then?
No, a little bit towards the end of high school. I had a pager.
Okay.
And then I was one of the first to have a little mini cell phone, one of those little Nokia block ones that you take off the faceplate, like my senior year, and everybody's like, "Wow, how'd you get a cell phone?" And all that good stuff. But yeah, growing up, it was more outdoor stuff. We just really enjoyed, doing things outside.
Yeah. I was like the tail end of that generation. We were the first generation to have like, the Xbox and, PlayStations. And I used to call, my friends on the landline, and, I used to call my wife. She was a neighbor. When we were kids, we dated, and I called her on the landline, across the street and stuff. And then, when we were in high school, we had cell phones. So it was like, got to kind of see that progression. And man, it's crazy to even think about what our kids are going to have, They grow up with these incredibly powerful devices in their hands. We don't even know what it's going to do to them. It's all a test, really. Like, how are these devices going to affect them as adults? We already see, kind of the repercussions of some of that stuff with social media and like how it affects young women and all that. And it's like, we don't really know the outcome yet. It could make us smarter and more connected, and it does, I believe, because you have all the information in the world at your fingertips. But with that, power comes great responsibility, right? Like, how do you control that? How do you delegate that information, right? Who's controlling that information? Are you watching what your kids are watching? Because as busy parents, it's like, it's hard to be, especially if you have multiple children, to be paying attention to what are they looking at on their phones. And you don't want to be a helicopter parent and like overly engaged. Let me see your phone. And, what are you watching? So we restrict certain apps, our kids don't have TikTok and stuff like that because, but still, it's like, if they have access to the internet, they're going to get into weird stuff.
Totally.
If I would have had access to the internet as a teenager, my dick would have been on the internet.
No doubt.
You know what I mean?
And some more.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, man, it's a crazy time to be parenting for sure.
It is wild for sure.
So how were you introduced to drugs and alcohol? Like, where did that journey begin?
Yeah. So I was in 7th grade, and I remember like it was yesterday. I had these two friends that I hung out with all the time, and they had an older cousin that had a car that I don't know. He was just hip and cool and
Yeah.
older, and he brought by these good old English 40s, right?
Yeah.
And I just remember watching them starting to drink, and the whole room just come alive.
Yeah.
And I didn't even hesitate. There was no pressure there. I liked these guys. I admired their cousin, and I just started drinking, And before you know it, once the effect hit me,
Yeah.
it's like I found gold.
Right. Yeah.
His car was like a Toyota Celica at the time. And I looked outside 5 drinks later, it was like a Ferrari.
Right.
Just like that. It just everything just got better.
Yeah.
We'd hang out with girls, and it just the anxiousness and the worry of me as a kid just seemed to evaporate. That's what the attraction was for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a trip, huh? It talks about that in the big book, right? Just changes the way you feel and removes all that anxiety. It makes you, outgoing, and you feel at home. You feel like you've found it, and that's what's so dangerous about it, unfortunately. So started drinking pretty young. That was middle school, you said?
Yeah, 7th grade.
Yeah. And then where did it progress from there? How'd your high school look?
First 2 years of high school, like I said earlier, I was really into skateboarding.
Okay.
And I don't know, I got sponsored by the shop in Citrus Heights, was going to all these Northern California contests. A couple of my friends all skateboarded.
What shop was that?
Surf and Skate.
Yeah.
Bob.
Nice.
Yeah.
We used to go there.
Yeah, sponsored by Bob. Me, a guy named Josh Mortensen, and then our good friend Brandon Biebel. And we just would hang out and party and skate, man. That was the life. And it wasn't like a daily thing, but it was more of like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then kind of cool it and then go into school. And by I would say my sophomore, junior year, things changed. I got a car and a connection on some stuff, and my priority shifted from loving to skateboard and enjoy this to a whole nother world opened up for me.
Yeah.
And so I was enticed by hanging out with the popular people and hanging out with girls and having this car and this freedom and this pager and this stuff, and it just kind of evolved. And my dreams of being a little skateboarder kid that was kind of up and coming just took a back seat.
Yeah. So let's go back for just a second. Did you see repercussions of alcohol and drinking or drugs as a kid? Like, did you see people struggle with it? Did anybody tell you, like, look, you drink, you use, this is what your life's going to look like? I mean, because for me, I have it in my family. My dad struggled with it. I got multiple people in my family that struggled with drugs and alcohol. So I knew what that looked like, and I also, when I started drinking, like partying, I would say freshman year. I think I had my first drink about the same time, like middle school.
Right.
And I was pretty against it because I had seen, the repercussions of it. And I knew I didn't want to go there. I was into sports, things like that. Right. But as soon as I tried drugs, like you said, like a whole different world opened up. Like when I first took ecstasy and like cocaine, like my mind was blown that this was even real, that you could feel that way. You know what I mean? And my whole life changed. And I just, I wasn't prepared for that. You know what I mean? And, you get into these friend groups, right? Or cultures like skateboarding where it's like partying is a pretty normal thing, and they're kind of like outcast type of guys, rebels, kind of go against the grain, a lot of fighting and partying and stuff like that in that culture, which I was attracted to all that too. And once you get into high school, like everything changes, right? You start looking at girls and like getting into cliques, and you start thinking about money and cars and like status. And how did all that affect you once you started getting into that lifestyle?
started to consume me.
Yeah.
You know, and just to answer your first question, there was no repercussions.
Yeah.
My parents are normies. My dad would drink maybe 2 beers a year and not even finish them.
Yeah.
My mom was the same. We have a thing with us Japanese folks, we call it the Asian glow. So when I drink or my mom drinks, we turn bright red, like
Right.
a lobster.
Yeah.
So we like other forms of alcohol, or at least I do. And so that's like almost a deterrent. My mom hardly drank because she didn't like that redness coming out.
And that's why they drink sake, right?
Yeah.
The rice alcohol is different.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to piggyback off that, not only was I didn't have, see any, bad consequences or things like that, I was just kind of enjoying it. And it was the early years, and it wasn't at a level where I witnessed anything bad. It was all like just fun, just pure fun at that time.
Right.
And then where it kind of turned and, things changed where my dad one day, he came home and I had stashed a bunch of this stuff underneath my bed, and I thought I did a good job to conceal the smell. And he was already pretty upset with me because I started ditching so much school. The Bella Vista attendance recorder would call every day between 5 and 5:30, and I had so many truancies, and he didn't like the stuff that I was doing. He knew that
something was going on.
Yeah, he knew something was off, and the final straw was once he found all that stuff, he's like, you got a choice, man. You can either change it all and get rid of this stuff and start going to school like normal, or you can get out of my house. And when that ultimatum happened, I was dating a girl that was a year younger than me, and her mom was actually a correctional officer, and she lived in Orangevale, and they just loved me to death. And she's just like, why don't you just stay at our house?
Yeah.
You can do whatever you want over here. My daughter loves you.
Yeah.
Come over. Bring all your stuff.
And how old were you?
I was 16, 17, right on the
Yeah.
brink. And so that door closed with my dad. I said, thanks for everything. I'm out.
That was it.
And so I was already living somewhere else my junior year of high school
Yeah.
and not, dealing with my parents, And so that's when the beginning of it all kind of took off.
And how do you think that affected you later on? Like, did you have a resentment for that decision, or was it?
Honestly, I didn't have a resentment. It was like gasoline just got poured on it because
Right.
now I could just do whatever I want. That girl's mom didn't really care. She was working correctional officer hours, lengthy hours. She was gone most of the time.
Yeah.
We had tons of people just come throughout that house and hang out and party. And, the leash was off. I was free to do whatever. I'd still go to my parents' house for Christmas and birthdays and still talk to them, but they knew I was on a different side. Like, they'd made it very clear too, and this kind of might sound weird, but they told me one day too, right before that event happened, that, hey, we don't have a lot of money, and we know you don't take school seriously, so we're only going to pay for one person to go to Sac State, and it's going to be your sister, and it's not you.
Yeah.
And that stung, like, even though I wasn't, this overachiever academically, obviously I was going down a different path. When they told me that, I just was like, forget about it then.
Yeah.
What's the point? And so I kind of just totally took a left.
Yeah. So growing up and like going through high school, did you have dreams and aspirations? Did you have a goal in mind, something you wanted to do? Like what was kind of your direction in life, if you had one?
At that time, I didn't have a direction. I'll be 100% transparent and honest. I just wanted to party, and I was selling my stuff on the side and hanging out and having fun, and I really didn't know. My game plan at that time was just to graduate high school, party for 2 more years, and then go to college. And we'll figure it out. Like, I didn't even know what my talents, my attributes, like, I didn't know. I was just enjoying that life.
Yeah.
So I really didn't have it,
Yeah.
I was kind of just partying and just seeing where it would take me, you know?
And how about the church life? That all kind of disappeared.
Yeah, that vanished. That completely vanished. Once I left my parents and went my own direction and was operating on my own schedule and going to the bare minimum of classes a day for school and just barely getting by and hanging out with people that were up to no good, that went out the window.
Yeah. I hear you. So how did that progress? Like, what did your early 20s look like? When did this start becoming not fun anymore? Because that's how it starts, right? It starts as a party, That's how it started for me. Is like all just fun, We're just having fun, experiencing, exploring, figuring out what we like, what we don't like. who am I, right? Trying to figure out who I am, what I, who I fit in with, what direction I want to go in life. And that's what, for me kind of got me into trouble was like, I didn't know who I was, and so I was trying different things and hanging out with different people. And, I learned how to fit in with different people,
Sure.
And I could, I played a lot of sports growing up. And so, I could hang out with those people and, the whole jock life and all that. And I also had the drug addict, druggy friends, that friend group. And, I had all these different friend groups and I could be different people. You know what I mean? And I learned how to like be a chameleon in these different friend groups. And then I was attracted to like this criminal lifestyle, right? I was attracted to like this gangster lifestyle and the money and the girls and drugs and, guns and all that stuff, right? And so those were things that I like sought after, but really I was searching for myself, right? I didn't know who I was. So I was just like seeking. And it got me into trouble, Eventually it's not a party anymore. You know what I mean? Especially if you're doing narcotics or you're drinking heavily, pretty soon those substances become a problem within themselves, right? And then, before that, they become the solution, right? They become the solution to the way that I'm feeling. I've created drama and problems in my life. So now the alcohol gets me out of that. It changes the way that I feel. I don't have to look at my life. I don't have to deal with the stress of reality, right? I don't have to deal with anxiety, right? I can roll up a joint and just relax and get out of my head, right? But eventually the drugs and alcohol become a problem within themselves. And for me, I was chasing opiates, right? And that has its own problems, physically addicting. And, my behavior really changed, and I was willing to do whatever it took to get more, and to get money to get more. And so it led me down a whole criminal lifestyle, right? What was your experience like? Like, how did that progression unfold?
Sure. We'll touch on the opiates part. We'll get there.
Yeah.
But the early stages was I graduated high school, not on time, like 3 months late. And that was like June, July, August of 1999. And by that December, I got my first DUI, and I wasn't even 18 years old yet.
Oh, wow.
And the exact 1 year later, in that same month of December, 1 year later, I got another DUI.
Jeez. Going
to the Classic Jukebox, the famous place out here, and 2 DUIs back to back. I'm not even 21 years old yet.
Yeah.
Things are starting to stack up, and for me, things kind of changed. I kind of noticed that things aren't going so well, so maybe I should try something different. And I got extremely lucky at a young age. I got into corporate America, and I started to get into the boom of mortgages back then.
Okay.
And things changed from just drinking and smoking to now I'm making some pretty decent money, and I'm being able to party,
right,
and hang out with a higher class of people. And so it started to go there. And once that happened, I don't know, once again, the dynamics changed, and it went from partying on the white stuff to now getting hooked on opiates. That's back when the Vicodins, the Norcos, and the Oxycontins were still heavily going around, and the prescriptions weren't being regulated like they are nowadays. Fentanyl wasn't a thing, and it was just a different ball game. And once that entered the arena, oh my goodness, it just started getting dark fast.
Yeah.
Because as you know, with opiates, that dependency of being dope sick every morning at 6, 7, 8, 9 a.m., where I'm just getting the, that stomach and that hot and cold and the restless legs and that anxiety and that elephant on my chest, I just couldn't even perform anymore.
Yep.
And so now you take, this income that you're used to making that's, fueling your habit, the 6-figure income, and I'm not even able to do it anymore, Plus I'm having problems at work. I'm literally going to score in the middle of the day because the Connect's not available before work. And by the time I go do it, I'm at my desk laid out, like literally, and they're picking me up saying, hey, you probably need to go home today. something's not right with you. And when that happens consistently, it's only a matter of time where, they either have to let you go or you can voluntarily, go your own way and part ways. So that's when it really started to take off.
Yeah. I experienced that too. Like I could get into these good jobs, but my addiction would always catch up, like I could only hold up that facade for so long, and my addiction progressed from those pills to heroin. And so, I'm riding around in company vehicles, smoking heroin in their vehicles, showing up and just a mess, and you can never hold it together. The drugs come first no matter what. And like you're saying, like you feel that withdrawal coming on and you know how to change it. Like, what is going to make you feel better, and when you're physically addicted like that, it changes our thinking, where like that instinct to survive kicks in and you feel like you need those drugs to survive. Right. And you're willing to do anything to get more, and man, that can get ugly.
It goes fast. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, what ended up happening is, there's this night where I was partying at like 4 a.m. and I decided I need to go across town at 4 a.m. to go get something. And I'm driving up where Greenback and Fair Oaks meet over in Citrus Heights, Fair Oaks area. And they're going up Greenback towards Folsom. And there's this humongous cemetery on the left-hand side called Mount Vernon. And I'd been up for 3 or 4 days doing all the stuff that we've been talking about. And what ended up happening is I'm driving up Greenback, and if to the left, if you see Mount Vernon, there's these 2 giant cylinder brick walls as you enter in that parking lot.
Yeah.
And on the right-hand brick wall, there's this itty-bitty fire hydrant. And somehow at 4:35 in the morning, I overgo oncoming traffic. By the grace of God, I didn't hit anybody or kill anybody, clipped that only fire hydrant and rammed my car into that brick wall.
Oh, wow.
And all I know is my nose connected to the steering wheel and exploded. And I just felt blood go everywhere. The airbag deploys like 2 seconds too late.
Oh, wow.
I wake up out of this blackout and I kick open the door and I turn around and there's water gushing 75 feet into Greenback Lane. And I'm thinking, where am I even at? I don't even know where I'm at. And I recognize it's the cemetery that my best friend is buried in from a DUI accident. And all I can hear is sirens coming because somebody's already called the paramedics. I have this bottle of Oxycontins that's in a Vicodin bottle. I don't even got a prescription for Oxycontins, and I know they're coming. I chuck them over that brick wall. They pull up, and all I remember is getting hauled off to Mercy San Juan Hospital. I wake up 2-3 days later. I don't even recognize myself. My nose is black and blue out to here. I have stitches across my face, chipped tooth. I got a catheter down here. It does not feel good.
Yeah.
The girlfriend at the time is a bulimic alcoholic stripper that works at Gold Club Centerfolds. She comes in. She throws the ring at me. She's done with all my malarkey and all my stories and all my mayhem.
You know it's bad when the strippers give you the
right?
boot.
I mean, I didn't think she was going to leave out of all people. And that's when the beginning and the end just happened. Because now I have no car, no job, no driver's license, and it's going fast.
Yeah.
And that's when the crime starts taking place. And like the stuff you talked about earlier about having to get that every single day, but not having the means to do it legally.
Yeah. Right. Man, it's crazy how it progresses like that, huh?
And in my mind, I leave that hospital and the doctor's telling me, hey, there's this meeting downstairs in the cafeteria. Why don't you go check it out? I said, sure. My poor dad, he comes and sits with me at my very first meeting, and I don't even want nothing to do with it. I don't even think I have a problem at this point. I'm just sitting there next to my dad, and he's just worried that his son almost died in this horrific accident, and we're sitting in this meeting, and I'm just numb. Yeah. All I can think about is going to score.
Yeah.
Because I'm
going to find that bottle you threw over the wall.
Because the water's not up to here at this point. The water is only at my kneecaps, And it wasn't for about another 6-7 years until finally we got there.
Yeah. How was that your first introduction into recovery?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is by a doctor at Mercy San Juan Hospital. He said, go downstairs. There's a meeting. They might be able to help you. Why don't you just go check it out? He didn't force it on me.
Yeah.
He just read the file of what had happened to me and my condition and said, you might want to go check it out. But my ears, I wasn't even receptive. I only just did it to appease my dad that was worried and in tears, and just who knows, maybe let's just go down there, you know.
Yeah. So it continued to progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then for the next 5 years, it was just arrest after arrest after arrest, countless number of arrests for all kinds of different things, you know. And by this time, my health is gone. You know, at that time, I wasn't as big as I am now. I was probably like 180, 190 pounds, shriveled down to about 145, 155. I'm not eating anymore. Food's not a priority. I'm living on Gatorades and Snickers bars that I'm stealing from stores just because. I don't even have clothes really anymore. I live out of a backpack that I'm ashamed to even carry around. So I'm hiding it in bushes at times to go to hang out with friends. You know, I have sores all over my body because I'm not eating, I'm not sleeping, so my body's not healing. I'm paranoid at times, and I'm not me, you know.
What kind of drugs were you using?
At that time, it was heavy. By this time, it had crossed over into Oxycontin, but it'd been injecting Oxycontin at that time. And so at that moment, it was just, it's almost like you're using heroin. It's pretty much the same thing, you know? And it's just, I'm doing this every single day, and I'm speedballing with cocaine in there, and sometimes a spurt of meth or whatever that may look like because I'm too far down, and I kind of want to get back up for a little bit so I can work on getting more.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean, you know?
Yeah.
You got to be able to function, so... And it was just a 5-year stretch, and I'll save you the madness, but just a darkness of that, you know. And I was a frequent flyer to jails, hospitals, and institutions.
Yeah.
I was on periods of methadone at Bi Valley Medical back then, and they'd find out that I'd either OD'd and went into another hospital, and they're like, "We can't dose you today. We just got a call from such and such," and you know. So these type of things were just happening all the freaking time.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
What do you feel was the low point? What was the bottom?
The bottom was living like that, but the game changer was I'd convinced a friend to let me borrow his car because we needed to score, and he didn't have the connect, and I did, and I got arrested for like the 19th or 20th time right behind Winco on Greenback right there. And I got arrested in a residential neighborhood for a third DUI and a multiple drug possession charge. And I was so screwed up, I thought I'd park my car to return it at my friend's house, but his house was like 9 more houses up the road, you know, and I'd gotten arrested, and I got hauled off once again to Sacramento County I Street Jail, where I'd been there so many times.
Yeah.
But the difference between this time and those other times was right here. I was done. You know, for once in my life, I had nobody to call, not one person to call. For once in my life, I had no more excuses. No more people to blame. No more options. Like everything had just been annihilated, you know. And I got hauled off to the court a couple days later. You know how they like to do all that court stuff, right? And I sit there in this courtroom, and I'm just so broken and so disgusted by sitting in these nasty holding tanks, and I just can't take it anymore, you know. And what ends up happening is the district attorney and the judge had this little meeting. They pulled out my 4-page rap sheet, and they asked me some questions, and they talked to me for a minute, and they said, "Look, man, the way you're headed with all these charges that are drug and alcohol related over this 5 to 6 year stretch, if you don't decide to change your ways, only 2 things are going to happen for you." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" They're like, "Well, door number 1's not pretty, but if you continue this behavior, you're probably going to die on the streets of Sacramento. It's just a matter of when that's going to take place."
Yeah.
I said, "What's door number 2? What's that?" They said, "Door number 2's not good either. You're probably going to go to prison for a very long time. It's not going to be fun."
Yeah.
And then they got really quiet. And then they asked me the $1 million question. They said, "Look, are you willing to change or not?" And literally in that courtroom, I didn't care who was looking. I just start crying.
Yeah.
I just start crying because I just desperately inside wanted to change, but I didn't know there was like a way out. I had no clue that people actually got sober. I just didn't know that.
Yeah.
And they said, "Look, we have a really cool place to send you to. It's called Salvation Army Adult Rehabilitation Center. It's on the corner of E and 9th Street, downtown Sacramento. It's got 90 guys, a bunch of God, and a bunch of these blue books. And that place can help a guy struggling with the problems you're struggling with. Are you willing to go or not?"
Yeah.
And that was the pivotal moment right there. I was just so desperate to change. And finally, the water had gotten to the point of the desperation of a drowning man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because I think that there's something beautiful about that gift of desperation, you know? And I felt that same thing. You know, I had completely just ruined my life, you know, like a train wreck in slow motion, you know, years and years and years of abuse and losing trust in the family, losing jobs, losing everything, you know, losing custody of my daughter. And I wanted to be sober, you know, for the last couple years of my addiction, you know, I wanted to be sober. I wanted to be a parent. You know, I wanted to be a father for my daughter. I wanted a normal life, you know, but I was powerless, you know, and I couldn't get myself out of that place, you know. And when I also got arrested, man, it was like a relief, you know. It was like, okay, now I have an opportunity to do something. And I had been arrested before, but again, it was the same type of feeling. Like I was done.
Yeah.
You know, I was done running. My health had failed. I had expended all options, had nobody to call, nowhere to go, looking at a bunch of time. And, you know, and that's when I cried out to a higher power, right? Like, show me what to do here. Like, give me some guidance, like open a door. And I knew, thankfully, you know, I knew that people had gotten clean and sober. And I knew that I hadn't done the things necessary to get clean and sober, right? I knew there was a way out, thankfully. And I just needed to surrender, you know, really get out of my own way, because I was broken, you know, and I was desperate and I was willing, right? I was willing to do something different. And I think, you know, until people get to that place, it's hard. It's hard. Like, if you still have a foot to stand on, it's hard to change everything, you know? And I was that person that still had a leg to stand on for years, right? Until I had expended all options and got desperate, then I was willing to take certain steps, right? But as long as I had a hole to weasel out of, I was going to weasel out of there, you know? And, but our higher power has a funny way of waking us up at the right time, you know, and putting us in position and opening the right doors and things like that. And it's up to you to take advantage of it, right? And sometimes we do and sometimes we don't, you know? And sometimes our addiction gets the best of us, you know? And when I was in those years of wanting to get sober but wasn't, you know, willing to do whatever it takes, this is how cunning, baffling, and powerful your disease is, right? It'll backdoor you, and like it controls your thinking. And you know, I was in this rehab facility, and they're like, I was struggling with alcohol at the time because I had traded, you know, heroin for alcohol, which, you know, alcohol is its own menace, you know, and became powerless over that pretty quickly too. And they asked me if I'm a heroin addict, and I said, yeah, I'm a heroin addict. Like, I've been using heroin for years, but I wasn't struggling with it at the time, right? And they gave me Suboxone, even though I didn't need it, right? But my drug addict thinking is like, of course I need Suboxone, right? Or I want it, you know? And I wanted to be sober, but I just didn't, you know, your addictive thinking is cloudy, you know? And as soon as I got out of that facility and the Suboxone ran out, I was right back to square one, right? Like, had some seeds planted from these facilities and stuff like that, but I was still powerless. You know, I still hadn't gotten to that place where I was clear-headed enough to make a decision, you know, because that's the thing, is when you're still under the influence, you haven't crossed that line yet of that powerlessness, you know. And my thinking was still clouded by drugs and alcohol. And but that gift of desperation is often necessary. You know, you hear stories in these rooms, some people don't have to, all of our bottoms are different, right? It's like, how far are you willing to go, you know, and how much is enough pain, right? And for me, and sounds like for you too, like it had to go pretty low.
Yeah. Completely.
I had to go.
I just
all the
kept
way
digging.
down. Yeah,
And there was trap doors, and I kept digging and
Yeah.
going through those, you know. And I
Yeah.
got to a place where I just
Enough is
couldn't bear
enough.
it, you know. And just
Yeah.
like you elaborated earlier too, like I was using beyond my will every day. I was like, God, just make something happen. I don't want to do this anymore. And I find myself at some nasty house,
Yeah.
connects house, whatever, doing the same kind of stuff. And I don't want to do this. Sincerely don't want to do this.
Yeah.
But I'm stuck in this vicious cycle of being sick and the street life and all that stuff that goes with it, you know?
Yeah, you get caught up in the whole
Yeah.
culture of it too, and all of a sudden all your friends are people that are in the streets, you know? And like and the thing is, like, you really do have connections with these people too, you know? You have shared trauma with these people. You know, you go through a lot of stuff together, and oftentimes you're all that you have is each other, you know, because you've already, you know, burned a lot of bridges, you know, so all you have is these people, and you go through a lot of stuff, and you care about each other, and you look out for each other, and pretty soon that's your whole world, you know?
Because at this point, for me, everybody turned their back on me.
Right.
I'm not welcome at anybody's house.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not allowed to go places like that I used to go to. I'm just not. So this is like my family temporarily is these folks that are willing to go to any lengths to score, you know? So we're just caught up in this madness together. And then the sad part is too, like some of them would get arrested or I would get arrested. We'd get back out, we get healthy again and just right back in it, you know? And it's just, don't miss that.
That misery loves company.
It does,
you know? Yeah. And I know, you know, when I got sober, just like you were saying, like in that desperate moment, and like all I wanted was that peace and serenity, you know, like I just wanted to feel okay. You know, I was done running, and like the drugs didn't work anymore. You know what I mean? And I couldn't live with or without it, you know, and I wanted to be okay. You know, I wanted to feel okay in my own skin, and I wanted to be able to live without drugs and alcohol, you know? And thankfully I knew there was a way out, you know? And it sounds like you got introduced to that way out too. How did that Salvation Army trip go?
It is exactly what I needed.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know I needed it.
Right.
I walked into those doors just completely broken with that gift of desperation we've been talking about. And I got introduced to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous on day one.
Nice.
You know, and I remember walking in that first meeting. I didn't want to drink your coffee. I didn't want to give you a hug. I didn't want to laugh with you guys. I just didn't want to go on living like this anymore. But I was very open-minded and receptive to whatever takes place in, you know, these meetings right now.
Yeah.
You know, I was definitely just open to it. And that's when the magic happened. You know, I walked into my first meeting there, and I hear all these people laughing, and there was so much joy, and just the fellowship was just alive and well, you know? And I look over to my left, and I see 3 idiot guys I used to party with 15 years before that I used to party with. And I'm thinking, what are these losers doing in a room of Alcoholics Anonymous?
Yeah.
And they're happy and they're sober and they're describing these incredible lives, you know? And it was just so attractive because there was something that was so indescribably different from when I used to party with them to where they're at today because of this precious, beautiful program that I did not know. Yeah. And when I started talking with them, I immediately, I mean, I'm a quick study. I learned people on the streets, we kind of figure stuff out right away. And what I found out right away is these guys were participating members. They weren't just kind of going to some meetings when it was convenient. They all had sobriety dates, sponsors in the book, sponsoring other guys, doing, you know, service work, H&I work, all that stuff. And because of that, you know, because of that action, I could see why. Just maybe if that could work for them, maybe it could work for me. That was my glimpse into it, you know?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very important, you know, and that's why we do it, you know, for that newcomer that shows up with that gift of desperation. Yeah. But something that you said that's very important was that you're open-minded, right? And it can be a lot for a newcomer to come into those rooms, especially street guys and gals that like have been living a certain lifestyle. And I know for me, like I had built up this shell, you know what I mean? And I didn't want people to know me, and I didn't want to know people. You know what I mean? I wanted you to not look at me, you know, like leave me alone, dude. Right. And just like let me go about my business, you go about yours, right? And that never worked for me in recovery, you know? And but having an open mind and just like when you're desperate and you're willing, that open-mindedness is crucial. Like it doesn't matter whether you believe in God or whether you believe, you know, anything that the people are saying, like just sit there and have an open mind, right? Don't have these preconceived notions about anything. Just look at the people in the rooms, right? Listen to their stories. And especially if you know them from the streets, like the proof is in the pudding, right? That you see these people in there that were, I remember going in seeing people that were way worse off than me and being like, man, if these guys can get sober, man, I think I have a shot too, you know? And then you listen to what they're saying and like, you know, how their lives have transformed, right? And you go to these meetings and everybody's happy and hugging and you're just like, where am I?
It's a trip.
It's a trip.
Especially coming in broken like that, wanting no part of any of that, you know? And I believe they're divinely put into my life at just that right time.
Yeah.
Because if I wouldn't have seen that, I would have came up with some other ideas and been like,
Yeah.
you know, because I know me. But I just had enough of that stuff beaten out of me to where there was nothing left to where when I seen that, it just clicked, you know?
Yeah. It's a trip, huh?
It is.
So where did it go from there? How long were you at the Salvation Army?
So the courts it's a 6-month program, but the courts wanted to see me there for 9 months just to satisfy them.
Yeah.
Stayed there for 9 months, graduated, and then they brought me to a place called Mather Community Campus, which was back then a federally and a state-funded place where you could stay there up to 2 years and rebuild your life and get your own apartment, food stamp card, bus pass, get a job, go to school, rebuild your credit, get all your stuff expunged. And that's what I started to do. I started to just take advantage of every single opportunity that was there and really just kind of, you know, capitalize and just do the next thing to be able to better my life. Because my rap sheet was not going to help me get good employment. You know, my credit was shot at the time. I was broke. I mean, the list goes on, you know, and it's exactly what I needed. And during that time, too, I was heavily involved in Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, everything that I just touched on about sponsorship and meetings and step work and service and helping others, that was all right there hand in hand with rebuilding my life, you know, with those different avenues. So how did your early recovery go? What was that experience like for you? Once you bought in and you know, started, did you get a sponsor right away? Right away.
Yeah.
I didn't balk at it, you know, and for me, what it was is that I just caught fire for this thing. Anything that my sponsor at the time wanted me to do or described to me out of the book when we read it, you know, the precise 164 pages in the front, we just did it. And the more I did, and it was like contrary action. I didn't want to go do it. Like going to, you know, talk a 4 or 5 hour fist step did not sound like a good idea.
Yeah.
But I just went ahead and just did the next right thing that he, you know, read to me out of the book. And I trusted that it worked for him. And I was very attracted to him because his life was just like mine years ago, but yet he had found that solution, that way out. And I could tell, that, man, this is a pretty miraculous program if it can do, you know, the changes that I saw within his life that he described. So,
and one alcoholic helping another, right? Like that's you seeing him and like where he came from and to where his life, like that's what we need, you know, because there's something about that shared suffering, right? That one alcoholic helping another, that's really like the only thing that works for us is sitting down with another alcoholic and sharing those experiences, you know, because we know what it's like, right? Whereas sometimes the doctor doesn't know, you know, your wife doesn't know, your mom doesn't know. My mom has no idea what addiction is like firsthand. She knows secondhand, obviously, but she doesn't understand what it's like to wake up in the morning and that's all you can freaking think about, you know, and it controls your every decision, you know, it controls your whole schedule. Like, when am I going to use? How am I going to get the money to do it? Where am I going to go to get it? What am I going to do once I have it? where am I going to use it? Who am I going to use it with? What am I doing after? How am I going to get some for tomorrow? The whole thing, and alcohol is the same way. Like, it just controls everything, you always have to have it. And for me, especially towards the end, it was like, I need to have alcohol in my blood at all times. Like 24 hours a day, there has to be alcohol in my blood, or I'm not going to feel good, and when I don't feel good, I'm not doing good, and I need to be okay. Right. And I don't want to deal with reality either. And so I'm waking up in the middle of the night drinking. I'm drinking before work. I'm at the liquor store 6 a.m. I'm drinking all day. I'm drinking after work. Like, it's just non-stop, right? Powerless. Man, gets ugly out there, dude. It's freaking ugly. So how fast did you work the steps, and what was that process like for you?
That time around, I was probably done with the steps and sponsoring guys right after Salvation Army.
Okay. Yeah. Like 9 months or so.
Yeah. And then I got in a relationship, and for me, I started to slow down and relax in the program of action.
Yeah.
Because by this time, the good job had come back. She came back. The house came back.
Mm-hmm.
Some cool stuff came back, and I got to a place where it talks about in the big book is that daily reprieve. I wasn't doing that. I wasn't doing the same type of activity. I started to say a lot of no's.
Yeah.
In early sobriety, I started, everything was yes. No problem. Let's go. But I got to a place where I definitely started relaxing the program of action. And I actually was about 3 years sober, and I picked up one last time. Because I wasn't participating anymore. I wasn't surrendered to the program anymore,
Yeah.
And that lasted for a short 5 months, and I hit a different bottom. This time the car didn't go away. I didn't get locked up. She didn't leave. Like, none of that stuff that previously had happened.
Mm-hmm.
But this disease, from my perspective, it's a progressive disease.
Yeah.
And wherever you tap out and start back up, it only goes down if you're an alcoholic or an addict. That's just my opinion. And this disease, for me, nearly took my life. I was found full-blown cardiac arrest, dead on my couch in Roseville at the time. And my girlfriend at the time and my neighbor picked my body up and drove me to Roseville Sutter, because I lived like three minutes away from there. And I remember waking up freezing cold to the effects of Narcan and other medicine they had pumped in my body. And I look over to my right, and there's this nice 60-year-old, just humble doctor guy, just very serene, calm, gentle doctor guy. And he said the most profound thing to me. He said, "Young man, if your friends would have got you here within about 3 to 4 more minutes, you wouldn't be with us on earth anymore." And I just start crying, just like I did when I was getting sent into Salvation Army. And I just heard you guys in the meetings, the same stupid cliches you hear all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Jails, institutions, or death, or go back to the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah.
And the very next day is my sobriety date. I walked out of Roseville Sutter on the morning of April 25th of 2012. And from that day to right now, 12 plus years of sobriety, I've just made sure one thing. And that one thing is to never be too busy for Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah.
And as you know, my calendar is inundated with tons of AA stuff. And I don't, put everything out there, but it's heavily involved.
Yeah.
And because of that, one day at a time, I try to do my best to stay in fit spiritual condition and help the next drunk or the next addict, regardless of what's going on in my life,
Amen. So yeah, let's kind of talk about that, because it's a very common story, like you get on fire for recovery, and like on fire for God, and like you become a part of a community, right? You start working the steps, you start cleaning some things up, you're feeling good. All of a sudden you got a job, you got a car, you got a cute girl, like you get your life back together, right? And you relax, and you forget what got you there in the first place. And you forget what it felt like when you first got there. It's easy to forget what that you know, what that felt like when you first walked in,
Right.
when the judge drops the gavel, you know, when you lose everything, you know, it's hard to freaking remember that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to, that's why we stay connected, right? And I ask people all the time, like when they relapse, what took you out? And it's always the same thing. Stop coming to meetings, stop calling my sponsor, lost my service position. We disconnect, you know? And when we disconnect, it's easy to fall back into those old habits, right? Start hanging out with the old crowd or whatever. And, you know, we spend our whole lives, right, building up this lifestyle and like using these habits. And then we have a short spurt of sobriety, even a couple years, whatever. But when you disconnect from that, it's easy to go back to those old ways, you know, when you're disconnected. And something happens in your life and it's hard to pick up the phone, you know, it's hard to remember, you know, especially once your life is already good and stuff. It's a slippery slope, you know, and it takes a lot of people out.
I agree.
And that's why it's so crucial to, you know, be a part of this program, right? And to be in the middle of the herd. And like, that's why service is so like big, is because it keeps you connected. You know, it's a forced, not forced, but you're responsible to show up, right? And so it keeps you connected that way. Whereas, you know, if you're not of service in any type of way, you don't have sponsees, you know, you don't have a service commitment, and you're just going to a meeting here, a meeting there, it's easy to change, you know? And then all of a sudden you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, you know, and
I agree.
Things happen.
You know, I don't know about you, but my ISM center's up here.
Yeah.
And at that 3 years of sobriety that I had, things are getting loud again. Those meetings are stupid. Your sponsor don't know what the hell he's talking about. You don't need to go drive across town to go help that sponsor. He's not going to stay sober anyways. He doesn't want it.
Right.
I just started making up all this talk up here because I wasn't active anymore, one day at a time, you know? And I don't know about you, but the further I get away from that, the louder this gets for me, you know? And it's only a matter of time. It's almost like I light the fuse of dynamite.
Yeah.
I don't know how long that fuse is going to go.
Right.
I might sustain for a year like that.
Yeah.
It might be 3 days. It might be 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But the second I start relaxing on the program of action and start saying no and not participating anymore, for me, that dynamite just gets lit. And it's just a matter of time when,
Yeah.
you know, because this disease, like you mentioned before, cunning, baffling, powerful. If you got cancer, it don't talk to you like that. If you got AIDS, it don't talk to you like that. But you got alcoholism or addiction, they'll come up with some good ways to convince you.
Talks to you in your own voice.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's very persuasive too.
Very persuasive. Yeah.
Today I call them subways. You know, I'm at the edge of this platform and a subway comes by and it's just this terrible idea. I don't hop on. I just let it keep scooting by.
Yeah.
Then a really good one comes by. Hey, go help that sponsee that needs this. I hop on that one. You know, because my feet have been trained in Alcoholics Anonymous and recovery to kind of watch out for that and to know what subway to go on. Even though sometimes I don't want to drive 45 minutes to go help a sponsee, but I know that's the better subway to get on than the other one, you know.
Yep. And that's an important thing for newcomers to know too, is like, just because you get sober doesn't mean the thoughts are going to stop, you know, but that's all they are, is thoughts, right? And there's a difference between having a thought and acting out on that thought, right? Your brain just makes thoughts. It's what it does, right? It's there needs to be a separation between that thought and that action. And to go along with that is, as addicts, we have a hard time with impulse control, right? And so that's why we don't hang out where drugs are being sold and ever. But that's why we don't go hang out at the bar in early recovery, right? Anywhere where the chief item of sale is alcohol, I'm not there, you know, because you hang out in the barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut, right? And if I'm having a bad day and somebody puts a beer in front of me and, you know, I'm early in sobriety and like things are going crazy, I could put that thing to my lips without even thinking about it, you know, just because it's just like a reaction. You know what I mean? And so you got to be on your toes about people, places, and things, right? And be careful who you're hanging out with. And that's another reason to be taking your butt to meetings, right?
That's why it's so imperative for me for effective sponsorship,
Right.
and to be able to lean on not only your sponsor, but my brothers in the program. So when I get a bright idea and it's questionable and sounds fantastic up here, run it by 3 or 4 other people that have long-term sobriety, that are extremely active, that have, dealt with a lot of life in sobriety. And sometimes they just laugh. No, click, like when I run something by them and it's like, okay, even though it sounded fantastic 5 minutes ago up here, that's just for me. It's just, it happens,
Yeah.
even with years of sobriety, it just,
Yeah. No doubt. And it's hard to pick up the phone sometimes, but when you're willing to do whatever it takes to get and stay sober, part of that is picking up the phone. I remember before I'd gotten sober, like thinking I should call somebody, but here I am, like pulling into a liquor store, getting a freaking little bottle of vodka, knowing damn well I should be calling my sponsor, but I wasn't willing to do whatever it took, And until you're willing to do whatever it takes, you're going to have a hard time at staying sober, So let's go back to your first round of steps. How was that experience and what did you learn through that?
First round of steps was good, but I don't think I was completely thorough, and maybe that's why I went out. Like there was some more amends that I didn't finish, but it was kind of idling. But I still proceeded with 10, 11, and 12 after my sponsor had me do a bunch. I believe I was extremely thorough on the 4th and 5th. I mean, I sat and poured my guts out to this poor sponsor guy at the time, and held him hostage for a minute, and it really got raw. And then he asked me the $1 million question. He goes, all that stuff on the paper, that's nice. What's not on the paper that you're holding back? And that just nailed me, and I just remember leaving there and him reading the instructions, the post-5th step instructions where it talks about, going home, being quiet for an hour, thanking God from the bottom of your heart, him better, getting out this book, asking if you had omitted anything in the first 5 steps, and I don't know, I just felt that, I don't know what it is, that was my first real spiritual experience, is having that 4th and 5th and going home and doing those instructions, and literally just, I can't even describe the sensation, but I just know it was monumental for my sobriety and where it took me at that moment. It just it was powerful.
Yeah, for me, I think it was that 3rd step, and like really, taking that serious, and like, if you take that step serious, like that's the turning point. It's like we're no longer living for self. We're trying to align our will with God's will and whatever that is for you. And for me, it meant no longer living for me, like it's not about me anymore, and my higher power was the one that showed up for me when nobody else did, right? He was the one I was searching for. He's the one that fills the hole in my spirit that drugs and alcohol could only temporarily fill, right?
That's right. And
when I had nowhere else to turn to, I turned to him and he showed up, right? I knocked and he answered, and I immediately gained peace through that, through my connection with the higher power, and I knew that as long as I held up my end of the bargain and did the next right thing and did the things necessary day after day, that the rest would be taken care of, and I got peace and serenity through that. And I felt okay, and that's all I was searching for, was to feel okay and like not have to put in and put in and put in, right? And only God can fill that hole, that's all we're searching for really, is having that spiritual experience, sufficient to overcome drugs and alcohol, right? And it's a daily reprieve contingent on that maintenance, right? Staying connected and staying in touch with your higher power, and as this relationship grew, it was like, he's the one that pulled me out of that darkness, and so I just wanted to give my life to him, and like, how can I be of service? Like, how can I be useful? And I kind of made a covenant with my higher power that I was, willing to dedicate my life to helping other people in recovery if he could help me to stay sober. Like, help me to be useful, help me help others. Show me how to do this, right? Take my will in my life, guide me in my recovery, and show me how to live, right? One day at a time. And that's how we do it. And those opportunities come.
They do.
If you stick around, those opportunities come, and it's up to you to take advantage of those opportunities. And let's talk about service for a second, because that's how we stay connected, and that's how we stay in this thing, right? How has service affected your life and your recovery?
Service is absolutely critical for me.
Yeah.
For the last 12 years, I've always maintained 2, 3, 4 service commitments. I don't say that to brag or say, hey, look at me. I need that for me to stay sober and in fit spiritual condition for me. I'm so grateful for good sponsorship early on. Like day 2, my sponsor just had me setting up chairs and taking down chairs, And what that did for me is it was so powerful because I didn't want to do it, but coming to a meeting 1 hour early, setting up chairs, fellowshipping with people that I don't even want to hang out with, but all of a sudden building these connections and a home group and staying after the meeting and talking about the meeting and talking about all this other stuff and putting away the chairs. It gave me a level of accountability and, like you mentioned earlier, responsibility, to where then I started attending business meetings and actually getting bona fide commitments for the next 6 months. You're this person, or you're the secretary, or you're the coffee person. And I look at it as service it's so critical for me because it's the insurance policy. Just like my car. If I have a 6-month, insurance policy on my car and I go get in a wreck, they're going to take care of it. Same thing with recovery. Every time I've taken out a 6-month commitment or a 1 year or even a 2-year commitment, I've stayed sober that entire time. Where I've sat in meetings, some of my friends, they didn't want to reelect their positions. They got too much school going on. They had a kid, whatever. Drunk, high, drunk. And I'm not judging. There's something that has been proven to me by these commitments or like durations of sobriety that I'm saying for the next 6 months, I'm going to do this. Hell or high water, I'll be here every Thursday night at 7 p.m. to do whatever task it is, to pay back recovery and to, be a part of. And I've just watched people just not, do that. And that's okay.
Yeah.
But it's been very vital to my sobriety, and I'm so grateful for service. Yeah. And another thing I'll touch on service is that I'm heavily involved in H&I. I've had these 4 different rehabs for 9+ years.
Oh, wow.
And I go into these rehabs just once a month. They're 4, but they're just once a month. I bring in other speakers and we carry the message of Alcoholics Anonymous and recovery. And they always happen to be on the days that are just, I don't want to go at all.
Oh,
they're so inconvenient. I just came back from a vacation or this is happening, that's happening. I don't want to be there. And for some weird reason, that's when the magic happens every time. Yeah. I go there and I literally just have these incredible conversations with guys with 3 days, 17 days, 6 days that are telling me all this frontline stuff that they almost died 4 days ago and all these things. And what it does for me is it keeps me right-sized.
Yeah.
Because without it, the ego kicks back in and I just get fed every single time. And that's why I never give those commitments up. I love doing H&I work.
Yeah. Yeah, I have H&I meeting too. I love it.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah. And, something you said that's important there is like, that's why we continue to go to meetings and to be of service, to remember, right? Yeah. I need to see that person with 3 days and like hear how they're feeling and remember what that feels like, remember what that feels like. And I've been to those rehabs, I've sat on those couches, and listened to people bring meetings in. So to go back in there with sobriety shows them, look, there's a way out of this. I was where you're at, and now I have a beautiful life all because of this program, And another thing you said too about service is, it gives you something to do, right? It makes you useful. It gives you purpose, right? It gives you something to be a part of that's bigger than yourself. And I spent so much time in my addiction just like feeling useless, not having direction, not being, having any purpose in my life. And you could be a total junkie POS and show up in recovery and be useful immediately. by stacking chairs, by picking up trash, by holding the door, shaking people's hands, whatever it is, like you're part of something greater than yourself. And you become part of a community of like-minded people that actually give a shit. Like we really care. We show up in these rooms and we really care about each other. We really care about people getting sober. And we've all been through similar experiences. We understand what that feels like, and then we also understand what this life feels like, the other side of it too, right? And the beauty and the joy and the peace that we have today, and it's all because of these programs and because, we've bought into these things, and there's nothing like being of service and seeing a newcomer come in and hearing their story and then seeing the transformation, right? And being a sponsor and like helping these people through that and see the light come on in their lives, right? And see them go through that transformation of getting the job and getting the girl and getting the housing and whatever it is that they want in their life, and see that transformation and be able to be a part of it. It's the most powerful thing you can experience.
It is. I was starting to tear up a little bit when we were talking about that, because for me, my first go around in recovery, I did service work out of just pure, how can I say it? I did it out of pure just desperation. Like my sponsor told me to do it, I just did it.
Yeah.
Today it comes from a different place. It comes from a place that I owe. I owe so much that I have to. Like people are like, why do you do all this stuff in recovery? Why do you go speak at these meetings 3 hours away and go do all this stuff and set up these chairs and do these big events and do all this stuff? Because I owe big. Yeah. And if you've been given a lot, I feel like you owe a lot. And that's why I do what I do, and it just touches my heart, because like for years on this earth, I couldn't understand why I became homeless, lost everything. Everybody wanted nothing to do with me, go to countless times to jail, spending these nasty, trap houses, all this disgusting stuff. For a kid that once had so much potential to go to this, like why? My life did not make sense. But I come into recovery and I do the work that you guys, that's outlined in this book. And now my whole life makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I'm uniquely qualified, just like all of us, to help other drunks and to be of service and give this thing back. And all the most painful, shameful, just horrific things that I thought were just, like, I don't understand why I went through it. It all makes sense. Because the most painful, shameful things become assets to helping another guy or another girl get this thing. Because when Kaiser Permanente can't help them, Sutter can't help them, CDRP can't help them, one alcoholic, one addict, armed with the facts of their own story in this book right here, every single time.
Yeah.
Like I get utilized a lot these days. Like, I don't know why God's got me on some of these missions, but like my phone will ring, right? And I get these calls from people that are like, hey man, my brother, he's not doing so well. And I was giving your number through so-and-so, and they said you might be able to help. And I'm like, okay, what's going on with your brother? He owns a business, is doing really good successfully, but he's been drinking himself to death for 3 or 4 years. And I just want him to get help. And he's at that place where if he doesn't get help, it's probably not going to be good. Will you come talk to him? And I'll go over to these people's houses, right? And the sister called me with this exact story. And I go over to this house, right? And beautiful home. And I go into this place, and this guy is just trembling. And he's butt naked in a blanket. He's the business owner that's been drinking his brains out. It's her brother. And there's just 7s and 7s bottles, handles everywhere all over the room. And he's just begging for this last shot. I give him the shot and talk to him. And at the end of the conversation, he's like, I don't want treatment. I don't want AA. I don't want any of that stuff. It's not for me. It doesn't work. And I said, okay, it's great talking to you, man. And I left. The very next morning I wake up and he says, I'll do anything to go to treatment. Here's my insurance cards. Can you do whatever you need to do to just help me? And the sister calls me and she's like, I'm baffled. I don't know what you said to them. What did you say to them to convince him? And I told her, I was like, I never once told him he had to go. I never once told him he had to go. I never once told him that. All I did was tell him what I did and what worked for me. And I just extended that opportunity. And she was just blown away. And long story short, I get him into this place. He does really, really well. He gets out and I don't really hear from him a whole lot. And the sister calls me and she goes, hey, I really, really want to thank you for helping my brother. And the same bedroom that you helped him in, he ended up drinking himself to death in that same bedroom. And I just about dropped the phone. you know, because like here we are doing everything we can to help another one of God's kids for fun and for free. I had a busy day. I didn't have to go over there. I still did, just because I owe Alcoholics Anonymous and God so much. And just sad because he didn't get to make it. He didn't get to experience this life right here.
Yeah.
He didn't get to experience any of this. You know, he had all the material stuff, but that doesn't mean nothing if this is it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's just sad and tragic. So on one hand, I get to see these beautiful lives transformed, just like you described a few minutes ago, through sponsorship, step work, and all that stuff. But then I see the tragedies and the sad sisters and the wives and the kids and all that stuff, man. And it's wild.
That's probably even more common, you know,
Yeah.
you see the tragedy and people that don't get it, you know. And it's hard, dude. It's hard. You can, you know, it's that old saying, you can lead them to water, but you can't make them drink, right? And
We're not in the rescue business here.
no.
We're not. I can show you the way, but you got to be one to do the work.
Yeah.
You know, you can show up on the job site, but you got to be one to swing the hammer. I can't swing it for you.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful, but there's a lot of the tragedies too. You know, and that's the saddest part of this disease is I've lost a lot of people in the last 12 plus years. I've been trudging the road of happy destiny. You know, and
Yeah.
I got 2 sponsees I was telling you about earlier that both lost somebody in the last 3 or 4 days, and it's like now my experience, I can help them because once again, I'm uniquely qualified because I've lost other people in my life that were very near and dear to my heart, you know, and both those folks are still sober today. And this just happened recently, but it looks like they're still extremely busy in the program of action, you know, and trusting in God. And
So what are some of those tools, you know, that you speak of? Like what are some of the things you do when life shows up?
so I had a sponsee hit me up. As a matter of fact, I met with her last night. I've been sponsoring this gal for about 14 months. And she goes, you know, I don't know why I feel so disconnected and why I want to use right now, even though I'm going to meetings and stuff. And I just shared with her exactly what I do. This is a monkey see, monkey do program. Just copy every single thing that we're doing here. And we just restructured her program. You know, I said in the very beginning, you did all these things. And now we're at 14 months of sobriety. You just lost somebody. You're not doing any of it. So here's what I just laid out for her. I said, every morning, my thing is the same. I start off with the 3rd step prayer. 3rd step prayer. And the most important parts of that are relieve me the bondage of self. Take away my difficulties. That victory over them may bear witness to those I can help with thy love, thy power. And say all that, right? And then I also say prayer for others. Because I resolutely need to have my thoughts on others. Because I'm a selfish person still, even with 12 years of sobriety.
Yeah.
And then after that, I open up the daily reflection and get that little golden nugget for the day. And then I make sure to talk to at least 3 to 4 alcoholics, whether it be face-to-face or over the phone. And then, of course, throughout the day, since she has some time, I said, when's the last time you did an active 10-step? Hasn't been happening. So we're piling up resentments and fears all over again. So I make sure to be all over that 10-step that 10-step. And then, of course, I just said, make sure you at least go to a meeting. And when you go to that meeting, not only go welcome a newcomer, but also go maybe talk to the speaker, an old timer.
Yeah.
You know, so those basic little fundamentals and be of service. I said, get there early. You might have been there 100 times. Go pour the coffee. Go step up. Go do something for AA.
Yeah.
The more times I do something for recovery, the better this guy feels. You know.
Yeah.
The more times I crack open this big book with somebody else, the better I feel.
Yeah.
And whenever you leave my house, your life's going to get this much better, and so is mine. And we're just going to repeat that every single week, just like that. Yeah. And hard times are going to come, but we can endure it through this process and through this higher power we call God.
Yep.
You know.
And you never have to use.
No. I mine's cookie cutter. I just, it's the 3 legacies of Alcoholics Anonymous: the unity, the recovery, the service. Am I going to meetings and fellowshipping and talking with 3 or 4 alcoholics? The bottom portion is the recovery. Am I in the big book with anybody? When's the last time I was in the big book with somebody, whether it was my sponsor or my sponsee? If I don't know that, I'm in trouble. And then the last leg is service. Yeah. And you heard I've always been in service. So I just try to continuously stay consistent and diligent in those efforts.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, if you're in the literature, that's the playbook.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you read the literature. It tells you what to do.
Yeah.
You know, it tells you what needs to happen, the things you need to do to get and stay sober, right?
Precise.
Yeah.
Precise instructions right there.
It's simple but not easy. You know, it's simple but not easy. And just do what other people are doing.
That's it.
You know, do what people that are sober and have good lives, what are they doing? You know, what are they saying? How are they carrying themselves? Who are they hanging out with? What are the things that they're doing, right? and try to just mimic those behaviors.
It's a really simple program. I look for the people that are fired up, that have
Yeah.
clearly had a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
And I want to pick their brain and hang out with them and fellowship with them, invite them to events and do
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff with them. But also I want to help the newcomer too,
Yeah.
you know, because think how uncomfortable we are when it's our first, second, third, fourth meeting. That's my main purpose too, is I go to meetings and I love the speakers and I love the topics and I love the book studies. But when they say, who's here for their first 30 days, please raise your hand. And you got 7, 8 hands go up. I just want to talk to 2 people, you know, and I look for the guys that's so uncomfortable. I could tell they're ready to bounce almost, you know, or they're just, I could feel it. As soon as that meeting's over, I just want 5 minutes with that guy. I'm not trying to shove A down his throat. I'm not trying to preach God to him or any of that stuff.
Yeah.
I just want a moment with him, man. I want to make that guy feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing, is they're not everybody's turned their back on him. I want them to feel accepted here at Alcoholics Anonymous, to have that same opportunity that I've had.
Yeah.
You know, and the more times you do that, that's a lot of sponsees have just come my way from that. Like, I didn't genuinely try to sponsor them. I just tried to just have them feel accepted here at Alcoholics Anonymous.
Yeah.
To know this is a safe place. And we have the answer here. We have the way out we can show you.
Yeah.
You know? I shared that with the guy the other day. He's a good friend of mine that I used to rip and run with, who's got like a year of sobriety. And he's like, how do you always get so many sponsees? I don't try to get sponsees. I just go and talk with them.
Yeah.
I didn't see him for about 2 months. And he comes up to me and goes, I did exactly what you said and didn't try to get him and just go talk. I got 3 guys. I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
I got, you know, and I'm like, that's it right there.
Yeah.
You know, just make them feel a part of. They got nobody in their life. Everybody is gone. And they come here, they don't even know if they want to get sober. you know? They're like, do I call the Connect? Do I go to the liquor store or to listen to this stupid meeting?
I know.
And then here you come glowing with some AA and just to, not even AA, but just to talk and hang out.
Yeah.
And extend that hand.
Yeah. It's so important.
It is. I love going to meetings for that reason.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great to hang out with friends and talk and catch up, but I love just going to see other people that are just, I hate to say it, broken and mangled from this disease, and just to be able to interact with them.
Yeah.
And half of them, they leave and they never come back, and that's fine too.
Yeah.
And then I get a tons of boomerangs too, where 6 months later, they'll come up to me like, man, you're the first guy. I remember you, man. You came up to me 6 months ago at this Rule 62 meeting, blah, 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 blah. You know?
Yep.
That's cool, man.
Yeah. You never know.
You just never know.
Plant those seeds. You know what I mean? And you're the representation of Alcoholics Anonymous for them, you know? And they'll remember you, and they remember how you make them feel.
Right.
You know? When they didn't have anything or anybody, and you gave them a hug and told them they're going to be all right and stick around and, you know, share a moment with them, make them feel seen. You know what I mean?
Like they're human.
Right.
You know? And people are like, oh, well, they don't got teeth or they smell. I don't care what they look like. I don't care.
Yeah.
Look what God did with you.
Yeah.
We're not all pretty when we get here. And I put that aside. No judgment. No judgment. Just go and help them.
Yeah.
Help them.
Yeah.
You know, that's where the beauty happens. And some of the people that, like, my brain kind of tells me that kind of stuff, but I do it anyways, I end up becoming like best friends with them. Or we still talk to this day, and we still see each other at events or meetings or whatever it is. And it's, this relationship would have never happened if I would have judged and just thought about, that guy's, no. Nope. Set that aside. Because God does that for us.
Yeah. And those are God's children too.
There are.
You know?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter who they are or what they look like or what they've been through or what they've done, you know? And it's hard, you know, it's hard sometimes to not pass judgment, you know, and to remember that but the thing is like, you know, if you're a Christian, Christ died for them the same way he died for me. Right. And whether you're Christian or not, like that's still God's child, you know, just as much as I am. So why am I deserving any more than they are? I'm not, right? And if you're in this program, then you are the representation of it, and this is how it gets passed on. It's how it continues, you know, but you have to be willing to go up and shake that person's hand, you know, and that's not always easy.
It's not. Some are very resistant, and it's okay. Yeah. But I at least tried.
Yeah, and
I want nothing from you.
I am resistant, you know, and like that's something that I had to overcome was like again, I said earlier, like I built up this shell and like trying to keep people away from me, you know, and not letting people in and all that. And so for me, like one thing I had to practice was meeting people. And so I would force myself to walk up and shake somebody's hand at every meeting, whether I knew them or not, you know, and like you said, that's how you develop these relationships. All of a sudden you got sponsees and like, you know, it snowballs from there, and sharing in the meetings too, you know,
being transparent.
Yeah.
You know, on all
being
levels.
vulnerable.
Yeah.
Yep. Because you never know what you're going to say, who it's going to affect and who it's going to help. And, you know, you might not think you had much to say, and then somebody will come up after and be like, man, I really resonated with what you said. All of a sudden you're building relationships.
Yeah. I call it being the paper boy. I just toss it out.
Yeah.
If you pick it up and read and get inspired, you want to talk about it? Let's talk about it. If you don't, cool, leave the paper on the ground. You know, either way. But I just toss it out.
Yeah. How has your recovery changed in the last 12 years?
It's changed a lot. So I base it off the triangle, like I mentioned earlier. Beginning was like 7 meetings a week. You know, I didn't have any sponsees at the beginning. It was just me and my sponsor kind of working together, and I only had like 1 or 2 service commitments.
Yeah.
And then over the years, it turned into like 3 or 4 meetings a week, still meeting with my sponsor once every 2 weeks. And then now I got 8 sponsees or something, you know, and it's been pretty consistent with a heavy amount of sponsees. I guess that's just what God wants in my life. And then, of course, beefing up with more H&I and 3 or 4 service commitments. And then all of a sudden there's another component to it too, where, you know, I don't say this to brag or whatever, but I get hit up to talk and go to these places and share. And there'll be some months I'll look at my calendar, it's like 14, 15, 16 stops. And I got to kind of, you know, allocate a right amount of time to that or push it over to the next month so I can balance out the rest of the stuff that's on the triangle. So it's changed significantly.
Yeah.
What worked in year 1 is not going to work in year 12 for me. Maybe for somebody else, but I firmly believe we're either growing or going in this program. And I've always tried to find other ways where I can grow and help more and do more, you know? And like I said, because I owe so much, where more has been given, more is expected. And I got to just give more, you know? And if God wants me to go out and go to some places and talk, we're doing that. If he wants me to help more people, I'll do that too. I'm willing. You know? So it's changed a lot. It's a roller coaster. Yeah. But I wouldn't change it for anything, because I've met just incredible souls and just beautiful people along the way, and connections all over. I was just on a cruise ship a couple days ago, and 9 a.m., Carnival Cruise Line, friends of Bill W., only 5 of us. Kathy and this other girl named Joanne are both from Carlsbad, which is, you know, San Diego area, and then Illinois, Chicago area, both 30 plus years. Then you got a guy sitting next to me with 71 days who's from SoCal. We exchanged numbers. He's in Ranch Cucamonga. And then some other guy who just kind of visiting. That's fine. We talked a little bit. And then I get out. I see them tons of times on the ship after the meeting. And it was just the most powerful little group, because we just got so raw and transparent, you know? And then as we're leaving the ship, you know, was it a day ago? They see me and they're like, we want you to come speak for us in Carlsbad next time you're out there, and we'll line something up. And I mean, it just, you never know. It's just an incredible journey. You know?
What do you think the secret to longevity and recovery is?
Consistency.
Yeah.
Just like anything else, you know, it's the consistency. It's so easy, in my opinion, this is my opinion, it's not in the book. Never let the life that AA gave you get in the way of your AA life. There's so many times where early on sobriety, from years 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, it's easy to stay consistent. But then you throw some kids, a very lucrative career, maybe a business, you know, relationship, some, you know, some cool fancy stuff, whatever that looks like for somebody. And all of a sudden, it's like that consistency of that triangle just kind of diminishes. And we're finding ourselves to a place where it's only 1 meeting a month. There's no sponsees. There's no sponsor connection anymore. We're not even telling the sponsor the real stuff that's going on with us, you know? And I only say this from experience, because I've sponsored many guys that this happened to, and obviously I have 1 relapse under my belt, and that's kind of what happened. And there's no more service commitments. There's nothing holding us to the fire in recovery anymore. And that's just what it is, you know? I'm so grateful for my sponsor, who didn't just tell me how to do AA or recovery. He demonstrated it. And that's what I try to do with my guys, you know? And I went to my first couple meetings with him. He showed me how to get busy, set up chairs, getting commitments, and shaking hands and doing all the stuff that I described. And I'm so grateful that my feet are trained, but then yet I've just continued that path and trusted in God and the program, and it evolved me into more of that, if that makes sense. you know, and all that cool stuff that I just described has happened for this guy right here. But yet I still will always make time for AA. It's vital and important to me.
Yeah.
Because if that isn't happening for this guy, the rest of the stuff is gone. I'm like Harry Houdini. That stuff will disappear in 30 days.
Yeah.
Gone. Just like that. You know, and I know that about me.
Yep.
You know, so I think consistency is key. And I think, like I talked about earlier, growing or going. You know, the step work I did a week ago was not going to suffice today. It's not going to keep me in fit spiritual condition. You know, the chairs I set up 3 meetings ago is not going to keep me, you know, sober today. It's just not. It's all about today. And I'm so I can't harp that enough, you know.
One day at a time.
That's it. And it just seems like, oh man, it's so redundant. I've done this so many times. But for me, I just sit back and it's just been an incredible roller coaster ride of ups and downs, just all kinds of just wild, fantastic stuff. I mean, the life that I have today and even in the last 5-6 years, Hollywood could not have scripted of what has happened in my life. And I don't take any credit for it. Tony gets this, AA and God get all the credit. It's not, you know, all I've done is just suit up and showed up. That's all it is.
Yeah.
You know, for my record getting expunged, I came here with just 4 or 5 page rap sheet record, gone. You know, $50,000 worth of debt to IRS, Franchise Tax Board. Had no intentions of paying anybody back when I got to AA. No intentions. And my sponsor tricked me through step 9 about making amends. He's like, you're broke right now, that's fine, but just take little bits of money, 20, 30 bucks at a time, and start making and paying it back, little bits. When I was 7 years sober, I got my first tax return in 17 years from the IRS. They had been paid whole, just like that. Didn't owe them a penny. And what I can tell you is the IRS is highly impressed by that blue book. Because they didn't anticipate getting anything from me, you know. Same with Sacramento Sheriff's Department. They haven't had to put me in orange PJs, silver bracelets, or any of that stuff in a long time. You know, that's all because of the program. So I don't know. I just can't say enough about it. It's really mind-blowing. I had no idea the possibilities that really lie within recovery and with God. You know, I didn't know. I just thought, oh, I'm going to be sober. Cool, you know?
Yeah.
But I had no idea. And that's why I'm so passionate about it, because when I'm talking to newcomers, you know, I just want them to know that there's so much more here. Like, I'm genuinely excited for them.
Yeah.
Because if that can happen for this guy, it can happen for you or even more. Because I'm nobody special. I'm just another drunk, another oxy needle shooting guy, you know?
Yep.
That's the beauty of it.
It is, you know, and it starts like with that gift of desperation, right? And like, you just need to get sober or die, right? Like, and that's how real it is for me. Yeah. And that's how real it is for a lot of people that are struggling with addiction. You know, it's like jails, institutions, or death. Like, that's it, you know? And I've been to jail and to institutions a lot, you know, and I've seen a lot of people die, you know, and it's life or death for me, you know, whether I get sober or not, you know. And so when I take that to heart, like, I'm willing to do whatever it takes, you know, and I'm just putting that faith in God. Like, I don't know where this is going, you know, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to, you know, just suit up and show up and listen and have an open mind and be willing to do what this book says and be willing to do what my sponsor says and to, you know, just pattern their behavior and, you know, just monkey see, monkey do, right? And do it one day at a time and just continue to do the next right thing and change our habits. You know what I mean? Because you continue to do the same things, you're going to get the same results, right? So things have to change. And early in sobriety, like, I just had to be tunnel visioned, right? I couldn't have any distractions. It was me, God, and recovery, and that was it, you know, and I needed that.
Right.
And then after I got a little bit of time, then you can bring a little bit of balance in, but you have to have consistency, right? Because the more you step away from these rooms, you know, the squirrelier you can get.
Totally.
Right? So if you don't stay connected, you're going to get disconnected. You know, and that's why it's so crucial to be of service and to have a home group, right? To have some consistency there and responsibility and accountability and a sponsor, you know, somebody that you're checking in with and like friends and people that you're close to in recovery. And
you know what really proved it for me too is, of course, it's easy when you're on the pink cloud and life's really good and things are going your way. But it's also when it's not. And recovery, God, and AA has proven that relentlessly, that the miracles still happen.
Yeah.
You know, I had a daughter when I was 2 years sober. She's 10 now. She's never seen me drunk, never seen me loaded, never seen me high, none of that stuff. I was 2 years sober, and I was running this high up management for this company, and they went through a big financial downturn, and they let me go because I was one of the highest paid people. And for the next like year, I applied for so many jobs, and I was either overqualified or it wasn't enough money. I was in that weird gap, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm blowing through savings. I'm blowing through credit cards. I have a 2-year-old daughter. I mean, I have a daughter, newborn at the time. I was 2 years sober. And I have this newborn daughter, and I don't even know what I'm going to do. And my sponsor's like, just continue to trust God, apply to a bunch of jobs. Why don't you double up on your sobriety? Go to more meetings, help more sponsees. And I'm thinking, this is terrible. Why? I just need a really good career. Like, well, why are you telling me to go to more meetings and do more service and help more people? And it doesn't sound, this is not working. I'm doing this for like a year, and it's not working.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't really share this a lot, but there was a point where in sobriety, I had like nothing left. Like credit cards were exhausted, savings was exhausted. I didn't even know what was going to happen. And I was doing everything he talked about. I was attending 2 meetings a day, sponsored probably 9 or 10 guys at the time, speaking all over, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I applied for this job, this career, and they put me through 4 interviews. And on the 4th interview, it was the owner, the CEO, the vice president, and this head upper management lady. And the next day, the CEO calls me, and he goes, "Hey, how do you think your panel interview went?" I'm like, "I thought it went great." He goes, "It was terrible." He goes, "She didn't like you. VP didn't like you." He's like, "But the good news is this. It's my company. I'm going to hire you." And I'm like, "What?" So I worked there, right, for 2 days. And then he comes over to me on the second day, and he's already offered me something pretty generous. I'm working there the second day, and he goes, "Hey, remember the lady who initiated the interview with you? I fired her today." And I'm like, "Okay. And why are you telling me this?" Like, I'm like, why is he even expressing this to me, right? We're in his private room. He goes, "Because I feel that you're going to take her position, and I'm going to give you all her pay and everything that she is where her status was with the company." And so instantly, from almost being so broke and so worried and so concerned to already coming in and having this good career with him, and then being elevated within 2 days, practically helping him run the company. And we soared. We did some amazing things with that company until they went bankrupt and got sued. But I don't know. That's where this program is continuously revealed just so many miraculous, mind-blowing things that I couldn't even have came up with.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of trusting God and like trusting the program, right? Because like I was saying, like it starts with you just need to get sober or die, right? But the longer that you're trusting in God and like doing it one day after another, doing the next right thing, and making amends and cleaning up that karma from the past, and pretty soon you get into the flow of life. You know what I mean? Where things are happening for you and opportunities are presented, and you're able to take advantage of them, right? The right people come into your life, things show up, and you never know where you're going to go in sobriety. You never know what's around the corner. But if you're willing and you just say yes and amen to some of these opportunities, man, these beautiful doors get opened, and you step through, and you're like, I couldn't in a million years have imagined I'd be here.
Not even close. I sold myself so short.
Yeah, right.
So short.
Yeah.
The craziest part about it too is like the way it all happened too with I totally blanked it when I was saying that. I just lost my thought about it. It'll come back to me in a second.
Yeah. So,
Oh, well, that's what it was. It was the faith.
Yeah.
It's almost like God was testing me for a second. Like, hey, now that you don't have the money and all that cool stuff going on and things are getting a little tight, are you still going to rock with me and help those stinky guys and those people that you don't want to sponsor and go to those meetings? It's almost like a test, because it was happening for a long time, where it felt like eternity to me. It was almost like that. And then all of a sudden,
boom,
at the end of the rainbow, just there it was.
Yep.
That's what I was trying to say, man. It was just one of those moments where
you get tested. Like how bad do you really want to be sober? Are you
gonna rock with me? Like, still, you're gonna be of service when you don't have it like that anymore. Like when things aren't going so well, when life gets lifey. Yeah. I still did. I still remained right there.
Yeah. And sometimes you just need to be patient, and just weather the storm. Yeah. And then other times you need to move. You need to take action and like You know, really take a look at what's going on in your life, what has happened maybe to get you to that point, you know, what needs to change, how do I need to adjust? And that's why, you know, being consistent in that 10 step, right? And like paying attention to how you're living, paying attention to how you're treating other people, you know, what are you doing? How are you talking to people? How you know, how you living, you know? And if you're living a little weird, you need to make some adjustments, right? Because you can't bring these old habits into this new way of life and expect things to work out the way you want it to. You know, things have to change, you know, and I know I had to change everything, you know, the way I talk to myself, the way I talk to other people, you know, what I was consuming mentally, physically, you know, what I was eating, all that, all my habits, you know, had to change. And on that note, like, how has physical fitness changed your life? You know, obviously you lift heavy and that's a big part of your life. How has that journey been for you?
So I started it years ago when I wasn't even sober. I was just locked up. You know, you go in all dope sick and you get locked up and you do a duration of time and there's nothing else to do except eat and work out. So I started it way back then. And then when I got into recovery with Salvation Army, it was just amazing because I had a group of guys who all wanted to get strong and big, and we were on a good place because we're all sober, you know. And then I think the second go around in this last 12 years of recovery, I would say the first 5, 6 years, I just fell in love with it, just like with recovery. You know, it was a big component, not only with the recovery in God Road was number one, but, you know, training and doing that kind of stuff was right there with it. And then, I don't know, it just kind of became a way of life. Like back then I was really rigid on like the what I was eating, you know, as far as, you know, the broccoli and the rice and just weighing it out and being very critical about it. And I'm not so much anymore, but it was more or less like I just liked the effects produced by working out. You know, I was seeing results and it was just, not only did I see the results, but the way I felt, the endorphins, the energy, and just, I don't know, it all kind of just coincided and it just, I don't know. And then what happened too is I hung out with a lot of other guys that just, we still live to this day. 12 years later, all of us are kind of in that arena of, you know, 10 to 15 years of sobriety, and we kind of just hang out. So it's a hobby that we like to get together because we all have kids now and careers and things have changed, but we still dedicate that time for us. Yeah. So it's helped in many ways, not only with the fellowship and the unity side, but with the internal side and of course with the endorphins and then just all around health, you know? So. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's been crucial for my recovery process, you know. It gives me something to focus on, you know. It's a positive habit, right? It kind of, you can even obsess about it, you know. But it's like, where are you putting that obsessive energy, right? Some of the most successful people in the world are obsessive addicts, you know. Right. It's just, where are they putting that energy, right? And for me, you know, it helps with my mental clarity. You know, if I'm struggling with anything, you know, and I get a hard workout in, it changes the way that I feel. You know what I mean? And I'm able to process emotions and thoughts through a hard workout. You know, if I'm having some anxiety or something like that, and you know, bust your butt and get a good sweat going, you're going to feel better. You know what I mean? Nobody's ever had a panic attack while running a marathon. Nope. It's never happened. Right. You know what I mean? And there's something to that. And then the self-confidence you build through the way that you feel and the way that you look, the goal setting, the goal chasing, right? The goal achieving, all that. Those are all positive things. You know what I mean? And the habit forming, you know, you're paying attention to what you're eating, you know, the structure, the discipline, all that stuff. You know what I mean? And not to mention, it feels good to look good. You know what I mean? And all that comes with it. I'd say just makes me feel good to exercise. You know what I mean? It just does something for me. And it's crucial. And I think if you're not exercising, you're missing a huge component, you know, that can really affect your life in a positive way, you know. 100%. And it's easy for people you see people go both ways in recovery. You know what I mean? I know exactly. Some people like us attached to fitness, and some people attached to Snickers. You know what I'm saying? And they replace that alcohol with sugar and cookies, and all of a sudden they're gaining 30 pounds. Or some people attached to fitness, and it's like, no, we're losing weight, we're going this way, right? And you can go both ways, obviously, but, you know, pick your poison, right? Choose your hard, right? Do you want to have all the negative health consequences of being overweight, or do you want to suffer in the gym? You know what I mean? You choose your hard, you know? Do you want to have a hard life because you don't work, because you're not disciplined in your life, because, you know, you don't hustle and you're not motivated? Or do you want a hard life because you have to wake up at 5:30 and you're disciplined and, you know, you're working your ass off all the time, right? Choose your hard, you know? And this side of the street is better long-term. It just is, you know? The long-term benefits of exercise and discipline and hard work far outweigh anything that other side of the street will get you.
Or it comes full circle. I've had a lot of people I sponsored or friends in the program who did the Snickers plan for a while.
Yeah.
They got enough pain with the 30, 40 pounds.
Yep.
And then came around a little bit later and got fantastic results, but it almost took them down that path to get back around, you know?
Yeah, and the eating's a hard one.
It is.
You know?
It is.
It's hard.
It's moderation though too, you know, like we all have that intuition of maybe I shouldn't eat this whole rack of cookies. Maybe just two will be okay, and then you know, but it's all dependent on goals too, you know, because when I was really, you know, rigorous with it and had these goals to achieve a certain size, a certain look, I mean, I really dialed it in for that, but I would still cheat every now and then, you know. I love cheesecake and cereal. That's hard to resist for me, you know, but
yeah.
It just depends on it. But something about goal setting and the determination and that consistency, it just does something so positive within anybody, you know?
Yeah.
It can be applied to anything with business or different facets of life.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be just exercise, right?
Yeah.
It's a lifestyle. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's habits. It's your lifestyle. And the positive things that come from that discipline and the hard work that we have in the gym, those trickle into every aspect of your life. 100%. You know what I mean? It carries over. And that's one of the other reasons why it's so crucial for me. You know, it just makes me a better person overall.
Everybody wants, like, I don't know, there's people that come up to you and, like, they see the end result, but you don't know what I look like when I first got here. Or, you know, it's like, you're seeing this years of work and you're not seeing the blood, sweat, and tears. You're just seeing kind of, like, the more polished look later, you know, so to speak. You know, there's no easy path. There's just not. You know, whether you're trimming and leaning down and getting shredded as heck, or you're bulking and you're throwing on some size or whatever that looks like, it's not easy either way. But it's very rewarding if you stay dedicated, consistent, and just really just stay the course, you know. But that's what I found out. A lot of folks, it's hard to stay consistent, you know, because other areas of life will pull you away and, you know, require a lot of attention, so to speak. And these goals that we once had are kind of, you know, they kind of fall down the scale a little bit, you know. Yeah,
it's the same thing like with recovery, right?
Yeah,
it's like
100%.
It takes that consistency, you know, and it's easy to fall away from that and get distracted, and we just got to come back, you know.
I just look at it this way too. I mean, this is just my perspective. I don't know. I'm on borrowed time. I should have died 12 years ago.
Right.
I shouldn't even be here. I should either be dead or in federal prison for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I know that because a lot of my friends I ripped and run with, guess where they are? Dead or in federal prison.
Yeah.
And I'm the only knucklehead that comes and does this AA stuff and helps others and does this and has a little bit different life, you know. And when you come from a place of knowing that you're on borrowed time, it just, it's a different tenacity, it's a different fire inside almost. I really do feel that way. Because it's you know, it's literally the bonus round, you know?
Yep. I agree, you know, and for those of us that have overcome that darkness, you know what I mean? Like, we really, truly appreciate the light, right? Appreciate that peace a whole lot more when you've gone through all that chaos and tragedy and darkness, you know what I mean? And you feel like you're living on borrowed time, you know, and like, you hold more gratitude for the day, you know, because you know what that feels like on the other side, you know, and you see people dying and you see people going to prison, and you're just so grateful to be where you're at and to have this program, you know, and to be walking in God's favor like that, you know. It's just a blessing, you know.
Just to be able to experience it and just have that opportunity. Yeah. You know, there's so many people with all the fentanyl going around that, like, there's been a lot of friends that they don't even do opiates. Yeah. But they were found dead. They thought they were doing cocaine or something else, and they didn't even have a chance, you know? Right. Yeah. It's like, man,
It's a mess out
I
there.
just feel so this gratitude that just burns within me that I've had this, opportunity to really just not only change my life, but the coolest thing about recovery in my eyes too is not only has it changed my life, but as I continue to do this, it's like a ripple effect of positive everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm a better employee today. I'm a better son today. I'm an actual father today that's around for my kid, that's been there 100%, and all these different other facets. And I would have missed it all if I wouldn't have decided to, go all in for this.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it, man. And that's why I stay so close to it.
Yeah.
The second line of how it works, it says it all right there. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I would just try to remain to do is completely give myself here to this program. And by doing that, the results are just like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
It's like something else, A lot of gold-plated problems today.
Right.
A lot of gold-plated problems today. Cadillac problems for sure,
Yeah.
that I would never even have thought could be possible for a guy like me, that's done a lot of bad in the previous life.
Yep.
So
what do you see for yourself in the future? What are your goals today? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do with this life of recovery you've been blessed with?
it's an interesting question. There's a couple things on the table right now, and I want to go down to the San Diego area eventually and live, because I love Sacramento. I love El Dorado Hills where I'm at now, but I just have this feeling that I'm being called out there, and with the business stuff, with whatever, but there's logistics with 50-50 custody and all that.
Yeah.
I honestly too, I would like to own and operate a treatment center down there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be large scale, but that would be one of the goals, is to operate down there and just to be able to have that environment, and just there's something about San Diego that just gets me every time I visit, and I really want to be down there within the next 2 to 3, maybe 4 years stretching it, but be able to have my kid and figure out what that looks like, and to still be able to start a whole new chapter down there.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's beautiful down there.
Yeah.
It's a whole different vibe.
It is.
Yeah. So what would you say to somebody that's struggling with addiction, that's watching this podcast, that is kind of sitting on the fence, or somebody that's new in recovery? Like, what do you do? How do you get sober? What are some strategies? What are some things you would tell a newcomer?
Honestly, it's kind of a broad question, because some of us need treatment when we first get here. Some of us need detox.
Yeah.
But putting that aside, and if you're fully done and you're out of the options, you're out of the excuses, you're out of the hustle, you're out of the lies, and you're at that point, the only thing left is to jump into the deep end.
Yeah.
Go all the way in. Just join us. Jump in. Give this thing a shot.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's one of those things where it talks about in the book, half measures avail us nothing.
Right.
Meaning, honestly, if the 12-year sobriety guy was talking to me back then, years ago, you don't get anything by just kind of attending a meeting when you feel like it, or calling a sponsor when you feel like it, or kind of just hanging out and doing some service when you feel like it. Go all in. Give it 1 year of your life. As hard as you went for drugs and alcohol and all that madness out there, take that same energy and put it all into here. I don't care if it's NA. I don't care if it's faith-based recovery. I don't care if it's AA, whatever. Some type of 12-step program that's going to connect you with the higher power or God or whatever that may be.
Yeah.
And go all in. Join us. I've never seen anybody's life get worse in recovery. My life collectively over 12 plus years has gone like this. Has there been moments of hardship, turmoil, tough times, things have happened? Yes. I'd be lying to you if I didn't say that. But the difference is, with good sponsorship, a very loving higher power that I call God, and a vast amount of tools that I've learned and acquired through this process, I can navigate through anything.
Yeah.
And it goes like this. I've never been arrested for helping too many guys or pouring cups of coffee at an AA meeting. But I've been arrested countless times for calling the connect, going to pull this off, do this. The madness.
Yeah.
So if you're at that place and you want to live a different way, we have it for you. It's right here.
Yeah.
But it takes three things: honesty, open-minded, and willingness
Yeah.
in your efforts to go all in. You won't be
Go
disappointed.
all in.
That's it.
Surrender.
12 years, I can honestly say I'm still all in.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm like, I don't even know how I do all this stuff. People look at my calendar, look what I'm doing. They're like, I don't even know how you do it either. I don't know. I don't try to figure out how it works. I just know if I get called or something happens or I need to go here, and I just go. I do the next right thing. I help the next drunk. I say the next prayer. I attend the next meeting. That's it.
Yeah.
And by doing that, I pop my head up every like 4, 5, 6 months, and more beautiful things are happening in my life. You know, today what's happened to me in recovery is I became a giver. When I first came here, I was a taker. I just needed this. I needed that. I needed this car. I needed the shiny thing. I just needed all this. Today, I don't need all that stuff, but it still comes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't even need it. I just give. I'm more concerned today on who and what will I give to. That's really what gets me more. Because my time is valuable just like anybody else's. But I really want to be very strategic on where it goes to give. And when I give, I take everything out of this pocket and give it away. This one gets filled up automatically every single time. And I don't have to worry, you know? It's mind-blowing how this program works, of being selfless. I came here so self-centered, and I probably still am a little bit, but I understand that this is a giver's thing, you know? Mm-hmm. And that's really what it comes down to. Be a giver, not a taker. AA and recovery, it's like a buffet. You just come take whatever you want. Come grab it all. But at a certain point, you can't keep doing that. At a certain point, you have to come drop off the plates to the buffet. You got to give. And when you do that, you'll be right here, it becomes really rich inside. It's an inside job, you know?
Amen. Yeah. What do you think the meaning of life is? What's the purpose? You know, what are we even doing here?
It's hard to say. It's a very interesting question. I mean, from my perspective, I shared about it a little bit earlier, I think I've been called for this. You know, there was moments, this is going to sound really weird, like, there was moments when I was getting loaded back then where I keep having these visions of me like in front of a whiteboard talking. And I didn't know what that meant. I had no clue. I'm like, I keep seeing this vision of me in like a white collar, not a suit, but just like a shirt or like whatever. Why do I keep seeing this? Or like, why do I keep seeing these weird things? And today I get it. Like, there's just a calling. I don't know what anybody's calling is. I can only tell you what my purpose is, but everybody's got a different purpose, you know, and my purpose is to serve and to give it away and just to help, you know, and the primary purpose of Alcoholics Anonymous, to not only stay sober, but to help other alcoholics achieve sobriety. That's all I want to do for you guys, man. I just want to help. I've been given a really cool life in Alcoholics Anonymous and through God and through good sponsorship, and I just want to be able to give it away, you know, and by doing that, I'm not worried about the money or the this, the that. That all just comes. That's a byproduct. That's just icing on the cake. And that could all go away tomorrow, and I'll still be okay. Still be okay. And I know that, you know. And the coolest thing is just when you stay in that space long enough and you stay dedicated to doing God's work and AA work, I don't know. There's something about it that's just so rewarding inside that no amount of money, nothing shiny can fill, you know. Because it's real purpose. It's real purpose. And it's genuine, you know? I don't need anything from anybody. I just want to just give. And I want to make every facet of my life feel like an AA meeting. You know, that same energy and that same feeling and that camaraderie and that unity and just that feeling. I want my home to feel like that. I want my work to feel like that. I want my parents' house to feel like, I want every area to feel like that. And that same level that we treat people with love, tolerance, and patience, to feel like that. And I drop the ball sometimes. I'm not perfect. I don't claim to be, you know, but that is it right there, is to have that, to share that love. Because there's so much hate in the world today. There's so much just negativity. There's so much discouragement. There's so much just, and you know what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. But to be that light where there is darkness, that's it right there. You know, be a lighthouse, not an outhouse, right? That's it. Because I've been a shitty person for a long time, back when we were talking.
Yep.
You know, and I'm not perfect today, just like I mentioned, but I try to be a little bit better today than I was yesterday. Try to have a little bit more compassion today than I was yesterday, you know? And by doing that, it's something else, you know? This is a life-changing, life-saving program. And I had no idea it would look like this. No idea. Not from them styrofoam cups of coffee, that nasty Folgers, the smoke pit outside, the old timers that didn't seem like they cared, a bunch of people talking shit in the corner. Had no idea it would result in something like that.
Yep.
No clue.
Trust the process.
Yeah. It's incredible. I just want to be able to extend that gift to anybody that is even open to it, that is willing to do the work.
Yeah.
You know? We're not in the rescue business. I can't save you, but I can show you. You know? I almost correlate it to like the gym, you know? There's a lot of people that, like, say you go to the gym for one whole year and you stand there. You walk in every day and you just stand there and look at people. And you're seeing them getting these crazy good results a whole year later. Like, wow, how come nothing happened to me? You just stood there.
Yeah.
You never got the personal trainer, the sponsor. You never actually physically did the steps or lifted the weights. You never got in service and ate right or any of that stuff. Right. Therefore, you don't get the results. It doesn't make you a bad person. It's fine.
Yeah.
But we only got one shot at life, you know, and if you're in that place, you know, I firmly believe too, a lot of people who come to these meetings, you've been called. There's a reason. People don't just end up in Narcotics Anonymous or AA or faith-based recovery meetings. It's not an accident.
Yeah.
You know, my normie baby mom doesn't accidentally walk into those places. She drinks her beer and goes to bed. You know, no criminal history. Like, there's no pain point. So I truly feel, this is my opinion. If you're at that level and you've experienced that, there's something more to it.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree.
You're not there just by accident. You know.
Yeah. And like we touched on earlier, you know, you could turn all that pain into purpose.
Yeah.
You know,
that's the beauty of it.
And all that crap that you've been through doesn't have to be in vain. No. You know, you can flip it and turn that pain into purpose and give it to somebody else. Yeah. And that's the beauty of this program.
It is. This is the only place on planet Earth where your rap sheet can be your resume to helping somebody else. That's really what it comes down to.
Yep.
You know, all the stuff that we're so ashameful to say or even talk to somebody else is so vital to to the next alcoholic that needs help. And I would have never understood that. And plus, back then I wouldn't want to share anything with anybody.
Yeah.
You know, but today it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. That's the beauty of AA too, is that I don't care what anybody thinks about me today. I don't. It doesn't matter. It doesn't make me I'm gonna, act a different way, but it doesn't bother me. Because I'm okay here. I'm okay where it counts the most. That's what it comes down to. You know what I mean? Like, it's all good.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well, Tony, you're a shining example of recovery and of this program, and I just want to thank you for your time and everything that you do, in the recovery, lane and in life in general, man. You're a great person and a great dad, and you got a lot going on, and you found your purpose, and you found your calling, and I'm proud of you, bro, from where you've come and where you're going, and I hope to continue to build this relationship, and I'm grateful to have you around, and I'm grateful for your life, bro.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for coming out.
Victorious we became, but never forgot where we came from. Life or death, not a game. We came to change the lane. Recovery addicts, that's the name. Give yourself a break, just one day at a time. You were born to shine, so live and let love be forever. My sister, my brother, don't give in. Please remember, the lie is dead. We do recover. Welcome home.